When talking about the best point guard to ever play the game, rarely is this man, Gary Payton, mentioned. Gary Payton is Seattle Supersonics' all-time leading scorer in points, assists, and steals. It seems since the departure of the team, Payton has also lost his place in the ranks amongst basketball greats. Gary is one of two players with the likes of LeBron James to have over 20,000 points, 8,000 assists, and 2,000 steals in NBA history. GP was also the best trash talker the NBA has ever seen or heard, and the only player to ever give Michael Jordan any problems in the NBA Finals. This is the trash talking bio of Gary Payton. Gary Dwayne Payton was born and raised in Oakland, California. He started playing basketball at 7 years old when his father, a famous local man in Oakland named Mr. Al Mean Payton, set up a basketball hoop on a tree on their property. This is where Gary and his brothers would play. His father would coach them and mold them into exceptional basketball players. Gary's older brother, Brandon Payton, would eventually go on to play overseas. Everyone respected Mean Al, and many people were afraid of him, including Gary. Gary credits his trash talking to his father as he watched him on the streets and interact with others. Mean Al would put up with nothing. He was a fight first, talk second kind of man. On the court, Mean Al would tell Gary to trash talk his opponents. Gary discovered at a very young age that when he talked trash to the other players, they were worried about him and not the game, while Gary would focus on the game and not the player. It was a level of thinking that worked for Gary and he could back it up. Gary would cause many brawls and arguments during his games in which many times his father would have to step in. The trash talking was a part of Gary's game and he would destroy players with it. At a young age, Mean Al would never give Gary a lot of credit on the basketball court. If he scored 50 points, he would tell Gary he should have had 70. Mean Al would have Gary in tears, telling him he ain't shit. But Gary and the other players knew his dad appreciated them. It was his way of showing them not to get comfortable, to strive to get better. Gary recalls countless times Mean Al would buy the players shoes when they couldn't afford them and take them out to eat after games. Mean Al would coach many basketball talents over the years. He wasn't just Gary's father, he was a father figure to everyone that played under him. Some notable talent that he would coach and would make the NBA were Jason Kidd, Antonio Davis, and Greg Foster. Payton would attend Skyline High School and dominate the high school ranks. He would choose to play at Oregon State University, where he became one of the most decorated players in OSU history, while being labeled as a top 10 point guard by many basketball enthusiasts to play college basketball. His honors are many in his 4-year career at Oregon State. When Payton left OSU, he held the record for most points, field goals, 3-point field goals, assists, and steals. Payton was featured on the cover of the Sports Illustrated magazine in 1990 as the nation's best player. 6 years after Payton had left Oregon State, he was inducted into the OSU Hall of Fame in 1996. In 1990, Gary would enter the NBA draft where he was selected as the second overall pick by the Seattle Supersonics. Derek Coleman was the number 1 pick ahead of Gary. Gary would join high flyer Shawn Kemp, who was drafted the previous year by the Sonics. A new coach would be assigned at the time of Payton's arrival, Casey Jones. The two personalities would clash. Casey and the other players thought Gary was an asshole. Gary was quoted saying, "I was an asshole. He was always telling me, 'You ain't ready, you ain't ready.' I thought I was ready. He taught me a lesson. My first year, he wouldn't play me. He'd be like, 'I'm going to start you because I have to, because you're the second pick. But if you're not playing good, McMillan's going to play all the minutes. Then I'm going to start you again in the third quarter because I have to. Shit, then I'm not going to let you back in the game because you can't do nothing for me.'" Payton was Xavier McDaniel's rookie and would have to do whatever the veteran asked. Xavier, I was his rookie, so I had to do everything for him. One day in practice, I was done with that shit, I told him. "Man, nah, F that. I ain't doing shit you say." Xavier looked at me and was like, "Young boy, you ain't even done shit in this league and you're trying to F and tell me what the F to do? You gotta pay your dues like I paid my dues." I said straight up, "What the F you gonna do about it? I ain't paying F and shit." Xavier grabbed me by my neck in the middle of practice, put me in one of those sleepers, right with everyone watching and everything. I was about to go out, and then he let me go. He told me, "If I have to beat your ass every time, you're going to listen to me." That shit was a wake-up call. After that, I did everything he said. What's funny is that me and Xavier are still tight to this day. In Gary's rookie year, he played a preseason game versus Michael Jordan in the Chicago Bulls before the three-peat Bulls happened. Gary didn't give a shit about no MJ, but he also didn't understand that this was only preseason. Gary was going off on the Bulls, talking trash to everyone, giving it to BJ Armstrong, scoring 19 points on him. Running by the Bulls bench and talking smack to MJ. Michael didn't play a lot of minutes in the preseason in general, something Payton realized later. A couple weeks go by and now it's the regular season. Michael Jordan was coming to town. Seattle was set to play the Chicago Bulls and Gary was ready for them. Gary Payton was quoted in an interview saying, "So we go out there before the game and everybody is shaking hands at the circle. MJ wouldn't shake my hand. He turns to BJ and he says, 'Leave the effing rookie to me so everyone can hear it.' Shit, okay, I'm thinking, well, F it then. Bring it on. The game gets going, I'm checking Michael, and I see Phil Jackson start calling plays. 4, 5, 6 times in a row. He's calling plays for Michael. And Michael is scoring 4, 5, 6 times in a row. Michael's on a different level than I knew there was. In a matter of minutes, I'm in foul trouble. Casey benches me. I didn't really go back in the game much more after that. I remember I finished with no points, played about 7 or 8 minutes. MJ ended up going for 33. Near the end of the game, I'm sitting on the bench and MJ comes over to our bench, comes right up to me while the game is still going on. Coach is standing right there. Everyone on the bench is staring at him. Looks right at me. That shit you talking in preseason? The wild thing is, MJ isn't even mad or nothing. He's chewing his effing gum. This is real shit right here. Welcome to the NBA, little fella. The Bulls won the title that season, and then 5 more before he was done. A rude awakening. Gary's confidence and mentality on how to play the game was also diminishing, to the point Gary didn't think he belonged in the league anymore. Gary felt he was restricted on the court playing under Coach Jones, making his playing time for that year a hell. Later, Gary thanked Casey for it. It was a growing experience for him. Gary needed his confidence in his game back and to be able to have free will on the court and play like he knew. He almost left the Supersonics after his second year with the team, but on January 23, 1992, the Sonics signed George Karl. Seattle would make a late season push going 27-15, making the playoffs as the 6th seed in the West. In the first round of the playoffs, they faced George Karl's former team, the 3rd seed Golden State Warriors, upsetting them with a sweep in a 7-game series. They then in turn lost in the second round to the Utah Jazz. The following year, in the 92-93 season, Gary led the Sonics all the way to the conference final after a 55-27 record, placing 3rd in the Western Conference, but losing to Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns in a 7-game series. By the 1993 and 94 season, Payton would make the All-Star game. Payton's production and numbers would increase every year from his rookie year. But Payton and the Sonics made history in a negative way and would suffer one of the worst losses in NBA history. They would face the 8th seed, the Denver Nuggets, and win the first 2 games out of the best-of-5 series. The Nuggets would tie the series and force Game 5 into overtime. The Sonics would come up short and lose. They were also eliminated the following year in the first round, making it back-to-back. With George Karl being criticized and his job in jeopardy during the start of the 95-96 season, the Seattle Supersonics posted their franchise best record yet, going 64-18. Leading the charge was Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp, both in their prime. They swept the 2-time champions Houston Rockets and advanced to the Western Conference Final and winning, beating Karl Malone, John Stockton, and the Utah Jazz in a 7-game battle, advancing to the NBA Finals. There they would face the 72-10 Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, considered the best team in NBA history. Gary would not guard Jordan until the 4th game of the series due to a muscle pull in his calf. George Karl was trying to preserve Payton to play the length of the series due to his injury. Finally, when Payton guarded Jordan in Game 4, Jordan only scored 23 points, going 6 for 19 in field goals. During Game 5, Jordan scored 26 points, while Game 6, Jordan scored 22 points, going 5 for 19 in field goals with Payton guarding him again. Gary made Jordan work really hard to get the ball by denying him the entry pass, while on top of that, when he already had the ball, Payton was all over him. Payton did what he does best and trash talk Jordan throughout the whole series. During the finals, when Payton guarded Michael, he shot 41.5% from the field, compared to 49.7% for his career. On top of that, Jordan averaged 23.5 points per game when Gary guarded him. George Karl might have made a mistake by not having Gary D him up from the start of the series. Although they lost in 6 games, Payton is the only player that ever gave Jordan any sort of problems on offense, especially in the playoffs, as Jordan averaged a career 33.4 points per game in the postseason. After that season, Gary Payton was named the Defensive Player of the Year, the first and only point guard ever to win this award. He was in the running again the following year, only to lose to Michael Jordan. From then on, the Supersonics posted an excellent regular season record the next couple years while winning division titles, but the Sonics just could not ever get over that hump in the playoffs, not even making the conference finals again. The team was eventually dismantled. They fired coach George Karl, and a 3-team trade was made, sending Shawn Kemp to the Cleveland Cavaliers and Vin Baker to the Sonics in return. Gary Payton was a superstar in the league. His numbers would increase after Kemp's departure. While his best years with the Sonics was the 99 and 2000 season, where he would average 24 points, 9 assists, 6.5 rebounds, and 2 steals a game. But the Sonics' best seasons were long and gone. The Sonics would not do any better with the new coach or squad. They saw less success than previously with Sean Kemp and George Karl. After playing 13 seasons with the Sonics, Payton averaged 18 points, 6.5 assists, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 steals a game. He made the all-defensive first team every season from 1993 to 2002. But Payton knew it was his time to leave. He wanted to win a championship, and it just wasn't going to happen in Seattle. On the day of the trade deadline during the 2002 and 03 season, the Sonics traded Gary Payton to the Milwaukee Bucks for Desmond Mason, Ray Allen, Kevin Ollie, and Ronald Murray, while Payton finished off the rest of the season with the Bucks averaging 19.5 points and 7.5 assists in the 28 games left. Payton would not stay in Milwaukee for very long, signing with the Los Angeles Lakers, teaming up with Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. Also teaming up with the Lakers was the second all-time leading scorer in NBA history, Karl Malone. This was one of the very first super teams to ever assemble, which had everyone thinking they would win multiple championships for years to come. But didn't happen. Plus, Malone would suffer a knee injury in which he was treated improperly for. Many thought if he was 100% for the NBA Finals against Detroit, they would have won. By this time, there was already a lot of tension between Kobe and Shaq, which may have led to Shaq's departure. Shaq has said that he was the one that got Payton to commit to the team by talking to him on a weekly basis when he wanted out of Seattle. During that season against the Memphis Grizzlies, Payton got into it with coach Hubie Brown in the third quarter of the game. Payton was at the free throw line shooting his free throws while he heard Hubie Brown complaining to the referees. Payton couldn't hold back and got into an unpleasant verbal conversation with Hubie. What makes this story a memorable one is that it didn't end there. They happened to be in the parking lot after the game at the same time, continuing their colorful conversation for the game nose to nose. Both were very animated, so much so that Shaq and the other players had to separate the two. The following year, Payton would sign with the Boston Celtics for 1 year before moving on to sign with the Miami Heat in the 2005 and 06 season. With Shaq again and Dwayne Wade on the team, Gary fully expected to come off the bench and play limited minutes along with a leadership role. But due to Jason Williams' injuries, Payton would play nearly 28 minutes a game. The Miami Heat would win the NBA championship that year, making this Gary Payton's first championship. Payton would later retire after the following season, ending the year with the Heat. Many people still don't talk much about GP being one of the best point guards to play in the NBA. Hopefully in years to come, when Seattle gets another NBA team, GP's name would be associated with it. Gary says he would like to be a part of the organization somehow and some way. George Karl also said he would like to coach the Seattle team again. Gary Payton has made it clear that he does not want the Oklahoma City Thunder to retire his number, as he never played a single game for them. In 2013, the glove was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing.